Next lesson on functions. Today we're going to go into the next step using composite functions, and that's to work out them in their algebraic form. So last lesson we looked at numeric composite functions, so now we're just going to go to the next step with it. So jump straight into some examples. So sort of thing we're going to look at, okay, is something along the lines of you will be given one function, for example f of x, you'll be given another one g of x. Remember guys, it makes no difference at all what the letters are in front, that's just a way of naming the function. So the first thing we're asked to do is to find g f of x. Okay, now if we're asked to find g f of x, okay, remember what that means is we do the second part first, we almost work backwards. So we start with f of x, and what that means is I'm going to substitute f of x into g of x. Okay, so that means everywhere I see an x in g of x, I'm going to substitute in f of x. So you always substitute the second one into the first one. Okay, so if I think about what I've got with g of x, so that's 8 minus 2x, but rather than x, okay, I'm going to write f of x in. So that's going to be 4x plus 7. So all that's happened here is I'm going to substitute in, okay, let's make this nice and clear. So I'm going to substitute in f of x into g of x there. Okay, if it was the other way around, I'd be substituting in my function of g of x into f of x. Okay, now obviously we're not going to leave it like this. Okay, we're going to expand it out and we're going to simplify it. So we end up with 8 minus 8x and a minus 14. Please guys, if you need to, make sure you take this part and you use a grid and you expand it out fully. So we'll have a minus 2, a 4x and a plus 7, and we expand it out properly to get our minus 8x minus 14. Do not make silly mistakes on this. And then all we need to do, tidy that up. So we'll have minus 8x, 8 subtract 14 gives me a minus 6. Okay, right. We've now got our function for g f of x. Second bit, hence find g f of 8, so that's what we've done before. The difference is, last lesson you had to substitute it into one and then take the answer and substitute it into another. To find g f of 8, I can substitute 8 straight into this new function I found here. So I can go minus 8 lots of 8, because I'm doing substituting in 8, subtract 6. So I'll have negative 64 subtract 6. To give us negative 70. Okay, so it's all about substituting one into the other. This time we're substituting in whatever the second function is written into the first one wherever we see x. This time I've got 4 different functions here. Okay, so let's first of all, let's start with a nice simple one, and let's go with having g f of x. Okay, so that means I'm going to substitute f of x, okay, into g of x. So it means I start writing g of x out, but rather than writing x, I'm going to write my function of f of x. So that's going to become 3x plus 2 rather than x, because that's what f of x is. And then I've got my subtract 5. I don't leave it like that. I'm going to expand it out. I'll simplify the brackets first. So that actually becomes 3x minus 3. Then I can expand out, and I can have 12x minus 12. Okay, just about substituting in the correct order. A little bit of algebraic manipulation. We work our way from there. Right, this time, let's go the other way around instead. So what about f g of x? This time I'm going to substitute g of x in everywhere I see x in f of x. Okay, So what you do is you always start writing out the expression for the letter that comes first. Okay. And then rather than writing x, you're going to write the function for the second part instead. What I am going to do, though, with g of x, to make my life a little bit easier, and I could have done this with the last one as well, is I'm just going to write this in expanded form straight away. Okay, just to make my life a little bit easier. So, fg of x, I start writing f of x, but rather than writing my x that I would do normally, I'm going to put my function of g of x in instead. And then I'm going to finish it off. Expand out and simplify. I'll have 12x minus 60 plus 2, 12x minus 58. Okay, right. Slightly harder ones. Okay, so if we start using, for example, h. Now the difference with h of x is that x appears twice. Okay, so if I, for example, want to have a look at doing h f of x, that means I'm going to start writing h of x, but rather than writing any x's, I've got to write the functions instead. So what that means is h of x starts with x squared. So instead, I'm going to start with 3x plus 2 squared. Subtract, and again, I'm not going to write an x, I'm going to write my function f of x. So I've got minus 3x plus 2. Now, what you need to get into the habit of, guys, is when you substitute these in, as you can see with each of these, every time you substitute in a function, make sure you use the brackets. Okay, if you don't use brackets, you will not get these correct because it's all about the negatives as well. So we need to expand and simplify again. Again, if we need to expand this with a grid, please do. Okay, you should end up with 3 terms for that expansion when you simplify, not 2. So use a grid, please, guys. Expand that out, and we end up with 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. And then we're subtracting the whole bracket. Now that effectively means I've got a minus 1 outside. So that means this becomes minus 3x minus 2 because you negate both parts. Then we simplify, so I'll have 9x squared, 12x minus 3x gives me plus 9x, 4 subtract 2 will give me my 2. So even if x appears more than once, guys, we still go the same process. Okay, start by writing what the first letter is out, then substitute in all places, rather than x, the one that you're after. Last one I want to show you, and then I'm going to give you a couple to have a go at before we go through them. What if we've got double letters or 3 of them to go through? So for example, what if you've got g, f, f of x? So we've now got 3 different parts to go through. Okay, and I've got a double lettered one as well. We go in the same idea. We have to work backwards. So I'm going to ignore the g first of all, and I'm just going to do f of x. Okay, so ignore the first one if you've got 3 of them. So if I've got f of x, that's the one I'm going to work out first. Okay, so that means I'm going to start writing f of x, but I don't want to write x down at this point. I want to write down my function I'm substituted in. So the function I'm substituting in is f of x, which is 3x plus 2. And again, I'll have a plus 2. Expand and simplify. So again, if we need to use a grid, please do. So this will become 9x plus 6 plus my 2. So I end up with 9x plus 8. Now when I do my next step, which is to do f of x, I've already got what f of x is. So that's now a new function. So that means I'm now going to substitute that function, so my 9x plus 8, into my g of x. Again, I'm going to use my expanded form just to make my life a little bit easier. So this is going to become 4. Again, I'm not going to write x. Instead, I'm going to write my new function, which in this case is ff of x, which is 9x plus 8. Then I got my minus 20. Again, I expand and I simplify, so I'll end up with 36x. 4 and 8 will give me 32. Subtract my 20, we'll do it all in one go, plus 12. Exactly the same idea, guys. Okay, we've just got a little bit of extra involved as well. Okay, it is difficult stuff, it certainly isn't easy. Make sure we get the order right. Rather than writing x, you're going to write the function you're substituting in instead. Okay guys, what I want you to do now, please, can you pause the video? Can you have a go at the 4 questions that are in front of you? Okay, and then we will have a look at them. So pause the video, can you have a go at those 4, please? Okay guys, right, let's have a look at them then. So, I've put an extra step in for you as well, like we did with some of the examples at the start, just so you get used to that substituting in as well. No difference. Right, so first one, hf of x. That means I'm going to substitute in f of x into h of x. Okay, so I start writing h of x out, okay, but rather than writing x, I'm going to write the function f of x instead. So this is going to instead become, I'm not going to write x, I'm going to write f of x instead. So we'll have 4x minus 2. Again, I'm going to make sure I put my function in brackets that I've substituted in, over 2 plus 1. Now, we can simplify this, okay? However, at the moment, I am more than happy that it's left like that, okay? If you wanted to, by all means, you can make it into 4x minus 2 over 2 plus 2 over 2. So we get the answer of 4x minus 2 plus 2, which is just going to be 0, so it'll be 4x over 2. So my actual answer simplifies really nicely to 2x, okay? But we will do a lot more of that with algebraic fractions later on in the course anyway. So if we've got to that first point, I'm quite happy. If you can get all the way down to the 2x, even better. So for our last part of this, guys, to do our hf of 2, all we're going to need to do is substitute that 2 into either our fraction at the top, so we'd have 4 lots of 2 minus 2 over 2 plus 1, or just into our 2x that we've got down to. So 2 lots of 2, so we should get 4. Okay, right, the second one, gf of x. I start writing g of x, but then rather than writing an x down, I'm going to write f of x in instead. So g of x is x squared. Don't want to write x. I'm going to write 4x minus 2 in instead, and that then becomes squared. Expand, use the grid if we need to. So we'll go 4x minus 2 and a 4x minus 2 to give us our 16x squared minus 8x and our plus 4. Bring that out and simplify it all together. 16x squared minus 16x plus 4. Okay, so that's our new answer for gf of x, which means gf of 2, we're going to substitute 2 into there, so we'll have 16 lots of 2 squared minus 16 lots of 2 plus 4. So we'll end up with 64 minus 32 plus 4. So we should get a final answer of 36. Okay, last couple. I f of x. So we're going to start writing I of x, but we're going to put f in instead where x is. So it's not going to be x plus 2 squared. We're going to have our 4x minus 2 plus 2 all squared. Okay. Now those brackets don't really matter at the moment in the middle. So it's just going to become 4x and then minus 2 plus 2 is going to be 0. So this just becomes 4x all squared, which is going to become 16x squared. Okay. Then I f of 10, substitute our 10 in, so do 16 lots of 10 squared, becomes 16 times 100, so we have 1,600. Last one, definitely a little bit harder because we've got 2 lots to do this time. So we focus first on the fh of x. So we'll go fh of x first. So that means I take my f of x, but rather than writing x in there, I'm going to write h of x in instead. So we end up with 4 lots of, I don't want x, I want x over 2 plus 1. Then I've got my minus 2. Right, expand out and simplify a little bit. So first bit would become 4x over 2, which is just 2x. 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract 2. So we end up with 2x plus 2. That's for the first part. We can now do g f h of x. So this time I'm going to start writing out g of x, which is x squared. But rather than writing x, I've got to write my function f of x. So we'll have 2x plus 2 all squared. So we'll go back to our grids again. We'll go 2x plus 2, a 2x and a plus 2. So we end up with 4x squared plus 4x plus a 4x plus 4. Expand that out and simplify. We'll end up with 4x squared. My 2 4x's give me 8x plus 4. Therefore, the last bit, gfh of 1, I'm going to substitute 1 in. We'll do 4 lots of 1 squared plus 8 lots of 1 plus 4. That's going to give me 4 plus 8 plus 4. I'll get my final answer of 16. The only other bit that you do need to be aware of, guys, okay, is potentially when you get down to something along the lines of, for example, let's just change that colour. For example, if you've got down to getting, for example, hf of x, they may ask you, rather than this bit here, they may instead ask you for the value of x when hf of x equals 10, for example. Okay, that might be the second question instead. Now, all that means is you've just got to solve the equation. So we know hf of x is 2x, so that just becomes 2x equals 10, so x equals 5. So just be aware of that extra bit of a question. You could just have an equation to solve in there instead. Right, can you get on to show my homework for me, please, guys? And can you complete the questions on there? Make sure you complete the exit ticket question as well, please.